To get started for our potato corn chowder, we're first going to get our onions diced. We start by cutting the ends off and then kind of removing any loose paper that can sometimes get in the way of cutting, can make the onions a little bit wobbly. And then once we have the ends off, we can cut them in half. And I like to remove that first layer of onion, not just the paper. I find it speeds up the process, and sometimes that first outer layer of onion is a little bit papery anyway, so it's good I find it best just to remove it all together. Get our spots cleaned up. Once that's tidied up, we can get our onions diced. So I like to cut them what would essentially be in a half moon first, and then we'll come back, we'll turn them sideways and start to cut against those cuts so we get our nice dice. Then we'll flip that last little bit down to the cutting board to make it easy to dice that last section. So get our onions cut. Once they're all cut up, we can stick them in a bowl to set aside. Now we'll get our celery ready, so we can cut the ends off the celery, get them nice and straightened out. That'll make dicing the celery a little easier, get any of the not good parts off as well. For smaller pieces of celery, we can cut them just in half lengthwise to get the dice size we want. If they're bigger pieces of celery, you can cut them in thirds lengthwise so that they're still bite-sized pieces and not too big. Now that we've got them all cut up or sliced, we can come back through to dice them. Just holding them all together, working our way down slowly. Go as fast or as slow as you're comfortable with so you can get nice even cuts. We can add this celery to our bowl with the onions. And we've got a pot heating up now that we can get these sweat down. So we'll add a little bit of oil to the pot. If it is smoking like this is here, you've got a pretty hot pot, so I'll pull it off to the side just a little bit. And we'll get our onions and celery in quickly so that the pan or the oil doesn't get burnt. So it's nice and hot. We will get these starting to stir around. Mix it around so we get a nice even mix of the onion and celery. We're going to go ahead and drop a lid on so that it starts to steam as well. While that's cooking, we'll go ahead and jump into our potatoes and get them diced. I'll start off by clearing off any nicks or bruises or cuts in the potato, anything that isn't going to be delicious to eat. We'll go ahead and trim those bits off. Get all those parts off that aren't delicious. Now we can go ahead and come back through and start to dice our potatoes. So first we'll start by cutting kind of slabs or sheets of potato. Then we'll do strips, and we can come back and do our dice. Get nice even cuts. They'll cook more evenly. It'll be easier to eat. We'll go through here and get all of these potatoes diced up very nicely. There's some upfront chopping for the soup, but once we have this done, we're in pretty good shape. The rest is just some cooking time. Now we can add our potatoes to a bowl. We'll set those aside while we finish getting our vegetables steamed and ready to go. So we can check on them. We can see that they're starting to cook down a little bit, but not quite there. We want them to get a little more translucent, a little bit softer. That gives it time for some flavor to develop, and it also lets those soften up. But we'll go ahead and add our salt and pepper right now and make sure that that gets stirred in well. Then we'll go ahead and add our lid. Give it a little more time to steam. We can see that the vegetables are softening up even more and that they are a little more translucent. So now's a good time for us to add. If you're adding the flour, now's the time to add it. So we'll add our flour in, just let it cook. This makes the broth a little bit thicker, a little bit more, gives more body to the sauce or the broth. It makes it a little bit more satisfying, I feel like. You can omit this part. You don't have to add the flour, or you can add a gluten-free flour if you're wanting it to be gluten-free. But we do want to give it a minute to cook that raw flour down, or cook some of that raw flour flavor out. So we'll cook that for just a minute, and then we're going to go ahead and add our water. We're going to stir that in so that we get it mixed well. We're going to get all that residual flour and stuff off the spoon. Okay, now it's starting to simmer, which looks great. And now we can get ready to add our potatoes. We'll go ahead and get those in. Stir them in to make sure that they're all covered. And we want to let the potatoes simmer until they're just tender. We're going to test them here in just a bit with a knife to see if they're cooked all the way. This can take about 8 to 15 minutes depending on the size of the batch you're making or how hot your heat is. So we'll give them a pierce really quickly here with a knife. And it should kind of come loose. The fact that it's sticking tells us it's not quite all the way cooked. So we'll give that just another minute. Here we are, just a couple minutes later. We're going to give it another test. And here we can see that it's like the potatoes kind of falling apart when we cut it. We don't want it to be mushy. We still want it to hold its shape, but we do want it to be tender just like this. So now we'll go ahead and add our cream. And then we want to make sure to get all of that cream out of there, so we'll use a rubber scraper to get the rest of that out. And then we can also start to add our corn. So we're adding the corn liquid and everything. That liquid is part of the soup. It gives a lot of extra corn flavor to use the liquid as well that the corn's already canned in. And then we can let the soup continue to heat up until it's just about to simmer. And then it's going to be time for us to take a quick taste to make sure that it's got the right seasoning, salt and pepper. And then it is going to be ready for serving. Delicious.